You're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam, streaming on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and at DCAUreview.com. Now, here's today's episode.
Welcome to episode 42 of the DCAU Review. I'm your host, Cal, and with me, you know him as my good brother, and the DCAU Review Twitter guru, it's Liam. Liam, welcome to episode 42 of the DCAU Review.
This is a significant episode that we're reviewing today. We're episode 11 of Batman Beyond. It's our last Batman Beyond episode for a little while here. Disappearing Inc. This was the episode, trivia note, that got me as a young child, as a 6 or 7 year old child, banned from watching Batman Beyond. Because Aaron's appearance when he is given the ink formula in the episode terrified me.
Sorry, we are reviewing Disappearing Inc. today, if we didn't mention it.
Yes.
So it's the second Inc. episode, and she's the first reoccurring villain, other than, like, Blight.
Other than Blight, yeah.
Other than
correct.
Blight, she's the first reoccurring villain, so we get a continuation of her story in this week's episode. It's funny, we were talking about, I think this paired with last week's episode.
Yes. We got the scary bugs last week and zombies that last week, and then this week we have
whatever the heck that disformed.
And it is pretty disturbing.
It is beyond disturbing. Like, even as an adult, you look at it, it's like, in the voice, it's just, like, it's
I'm
bad.
Uncomfortable.
Well, we'll get into
uncomfortable. We'll get into that later, but in visuals and certainly in voice acting. But,
certainly.
But it's also I think pretty memorable to a lot of fans because of one scene in particular, which we'll get into in a little bit here.
Absolutely. So breaking down our plot, like we said, it's a continuation of Ink's story. We find out she's been frozen in a block of ice for an extended period of time at a cryogenics lab, where one of the workers there has fallen deeply in love with her. Because
she can't help but listen to his dumb, boring stories.
Yeah, in some ways I feel like it's a little bit like reverse Stockholm syndrome or something like that. Like, the guy is works there and he's a loner. He fits the profile of like a borderline like serial killer type, where he doesn't have much of a life. He goes home, he works, he feels mad because he doesn't get paid for the job that he thinks he should, and he talks and airs all his grievances, if you will, with Inque. So then once she's free, she finds him and decides that he's going to be her accomplice because he pledges his undying love and devotion to her.
Correct.
So from there, we get her trying to figure out how she can get these chemicals. We learn later on through Bruce's expertise. He's still the world's greatest detective, clearly. Yep. Terry's off like...
he's trying to weld the Batcave shut.
And Bruce is doing Batman work.
Right.
And then it's great, as after Bruce is doing the investigation, Terry, like, you get that Terry is starting to come into his own when it comes to the detective stuff. We talked in the last couple episodes, he's had opportunities to be the Batman detective character. But still, Bruce has been doing this for probably 40 years at this point.
Right.
And he's clearly 3 or 4 steps ahead of Terry, always, at least in this instance. So... this ultimately leads to a confrontation. Terry gets captured. Inque still holds a grudge against Bruce, so she cons him out of the Batcave, where we get some Bruce fighting as Batman in the Bat-mech suit. Liam, it's a great scene.
Yeah, it's pretty...
I hate to start with this as we're jumping into plot, but this is like... the best part of the episode.
Oh, no doubt. And as you mentioned, there's good stuff kind of out throughout, and certainly we'll talk more about some of the other fight scenes and stuff when we get to visuals. But this is the moment. I mean, it's set up very early on in the episode. Bruce is giving Terry like a tour of the Batcave, and they walk past this big robot suit. Kind of looks a little like one of the suits from the Kingdom Come graphic novel.
Correct.
Which I'm sure is intentional. And Bruce mentions that it put too much strain on his heart, which we know from the pilot that he obviously had a heart condition.
Right.
But I guess this exosuit would have been the suit he wore even after the Batman Beyond suit had been made.
Yeah, it was unclear if it was the prequel to the Batman Beyond suit.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think it seemed like he was setting it up to use it later on, because it wouldn't have made too much sense for him to go from the fabric Batman suit to this big robot suit back to sort of a semi-electronic enhanced fabric suit.
Yeah, it felt like more like this was like armor to sort of protect his brittle bones.
Sort of a la Dark Knight Returns.
Yes.
There's a little bit of a nod, I think, to that as well, as we see older Bruce in that famous graphic novel, Dawn, the now famous, also used, of course, in Batman v Superman.
Yep.
Bat armor.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have that set up very early on in the episode, and then they do a good job of Inque knocks Terry out in their first fight. She has a chance to either leave him, get away with the chemicals, or to kill him right there, but she is now kind of focused on revenge, and so she chooses to capture Terry in order to so that she can not only kill him, but she also wants to kill the old man who she fought in the Batcave in the first episode.
Right.
So that, I think, adds a little bit to it. Is the villain's ultimate downfall is that she brings Bruce and Terry together.
Which is, I hadn't thought of it that way. That's pretty cool.
But her quest for revenge, she very easily could have just escaped. They wouldn't have known where she was. She could have done the full chemical treatment and then gone about her merry way. But her quest for revenge is ultimately what, and also her betrayal of Aaron is also sort of her downfall in the end. But yeah, so it all builds to, Bruce comes. He's dressed, as you noted, like the Shadow at first, and then which is an awesome little nod, because obviously the Shadow was...
You're getting ahead into visuals, Liam.
You're right.
Keep it in the plot.
You're right.
Stay in your lane.
He's wearing a big overcoat and a hat and a scarf.
Yeah.
It is noteworthy he's not wearing a cane, which is a little bit... He's not using his cane.
Yep.
So he's just walking around, and then she tries to attack him, and the suit sort of grows out of him, and he rips off the coat, and the bat mask sort of forms around his face. Kind of an Iron Man-like... moment there, and we'll talk more about this in visuals and
I don't know
music.
if there's going to be anything else to talk about.
I know, but we'll go into more specifics of it. They have a fight, is what the important part of plot here.
Yes.
And then, like I said, ultimately her decision to bring Bruce and Terry together, as well as her betrayal of Aaron, leads to her downfall. Terry breaks the skylight. Rain falls down, and she escapes down a drain and
thank God there was a glass ceiling and it happened to be pouring rain outside, right?
A big giant dome.
A coincidence there, a giant coincidence that saved the day. I really liked this episode. I think, I don't think I liked it as much as the first Inque episode. I think the first Inque episode is probably, thus far, it's top 3.
Oh yeah.
In the Batman Beyond episodes. This is definitely probably top 5 so far. It's a strong episode. Inque is a great character. I love her motivation.
Yeah.
They took, like we said in the first episode, they took the idea of a Plastic Man type or Clayface or whatever type of liquid or however you want to call it, like a flexible villain or hero, and made it something unique enough where it doesn't feel like it's just the same thing. We talked about that last week with Spellbinder too, and how well this series did that in taking something, keeping it familiar enough where you feel comfortable. Yeah, exactly. You feel comfortable with it. It feels like it fits in the universe, but it's still cool.
Yeah.
So she's a great villain. She's clearly a match for Batman as far as Terry is concerned. The fight scene between her and Terry in the chemical lab as she's trying to gather these chemicals to restore her to her human form is great. It's they clearly had a lot of fun being able to use a character that can, switch and shapeshift into different shapes. And she's crawling up the wall.
Let's go ahead and give our scores for plot.
Sorry, yeah. We're getting into our animation visuals. Yeah. I thought based on the plot alone, the only thing that we mentioned felt a little off was the end scene. Is a little bit played for comedy.
Yeah.
Based on that, it just took it down a hair because it was so serious throughout the entire episode. Took it down a hair. I gave plot 9 out of 10. What about you?
I'm a little bit further off from you. I went 6 out of 10.
The disagreement alarm.
I just felt it's pretty basic. Like
basic
9 seconds in, and Aaron we've already established Aaron. Like 2 minutes in, we establish who Aaron is, and that he's a creep, and then he gets fired. 10 seconds after that, he's cutting the wire to free Inque.
Okay.
And then 2 minutes, she has her first sort of encounter with Batman and the police.
That ice did melt awfully quickly.
Yes, the ice melts very fast. She has a brief, a hostage situation, and then she goes and finds Aaron immediately, and then we get right to the lab, and then right to the final battle from there. So, it's just it feels like... And I don't know what you could have done to do this better, honestly, but it's just, again, sometimes when it comes to my scores, I just try to go with my first instinct, which is I think it's good, but it just goes from, it moves very quickly, and it moves from guy has somehow fallen in love with Inque to guy gets fired to Inque uses that to get this guy to help her to then she betrays him, and
he was kind of okay. So I
it just felt like, okay, this character was introduced just so you could have a reason for Inque to escape.
I see that, and I could see that he's almost a useless character. Like the whole episode could the episode have been done without him? Absolutely. Yeah. Inque could have escaped any other way. I think more or less it was just, to me, it showed the ruthlessness of the character. The fact that she used him for her purposes. His one ask was for her to turn him into her, essentially. Right. And she is so cold-hearted that she doesn't just not do it. She half does it, leaving him this literal puddle.
Yeah.
And it's to me, I thought it was a great metaphor for the character and the ruthlessness and the Black Widow type characteristics that she has of, doesn't matter who else is in my way, I'm going to use them for whatever purpose, and I don't care who gets hurt.
That's fair.
I appreciated that. Anyway, okay, that's all right. We are certainly allowed to disagree. It's not very often that we do, in fact.
No.
That's why we mark it with our disagreement alarm, because it's a seemingly rare occurrence. All right. Now, we've been talking about it all episode. I'm ready to talk about visuals.
Okay.
You alluded to it a little bit. I alluded to it a little bit. We both alluded to it a lot, actually.
Well, it's such a visually driven plot.
It is.
Like, there isn't a ton of dialogue after the first few scenes. It's a lot of fight, and then brief talk, and then more fight. Mm-hmm. So, and the fights are really what I think stands out here, and the visuals of Inque's powers, the way she moves.
Yep. Crawling up the wall. I mean, there's a scene where she's chasing Terry up the wall, and she looks, she's coming after him like an insect almost. She has, her 4 tentacles crawling, chasing him up the wall at a high speed. She's obviously doesn't spend a whole lot of time in her human form in this episode, so it's her in her Inque form bouncing around, and you talked a lot about the Batman mech suit and the visuals of that, the homage to the Shadow as Bruce comes into the to the arena is really, really awesome. Yeah. And even we mentioned the disturbing nature of when Aaron gets turned into the half Inque-like creature, and his face is all disfigured and distorted, and it's disgusting. It's really, he kind of looks like, do you remember the episode Sideshow where Seal Boy is in it? He looks like if Seal Boy had been made of butter and left out in the sun or something. Like that's what he looks like. He's crawling around on his fours. He's just his face is all distorted. It's gross. Visuals are another huge strong point in this episode. you know, I don't know how. I'd be shocked if you didn't agree with me on this. I'm giving visuals 10 out of 10.
I also gave visuals a 10 out of 10.
There we go. You see?
Back to back, you know, once you have the disagreement alarm, you also have exact same scores in the next category.
Yeah.
Just, you know, it's just how it goes. But no, it's for everything we've already talked about. The brief fight that we do get with Bruce and Inque, and there's even more to talk about with that when we get to music, but you know, she sort of ties him up with her arm and basically tries to crush him. As I mentioned, the suit then grows out around him, and they have kind of a really brief fight, and she knocks him down, and then as Aaron and Inque get into like a little scuffle, they knock over the metal post of the boxing ring that Terry is tied to.
I think it was a wrestling ring.
Might have been a wrestling ring. It's tough to tell. I mean, let's say it's a wrestling ring. And then he's able to he's free to throw the battering at the skylight and bring the rain down, and then she sort of flushes away down the drain of the arena, and we don't capture her this time. And obviously we know she comes back, but
right.
Definitely it's like she's at large as of this point. And, it's not clear exactly if that procedure worked totally, if she got enough of the chemicals to actually restore her completely, and I think that's actually a plot point later on,
right,
when she does come back. So there's also like a built-in excuse of why she doesn't just come right back at them once she's able, like, because she's still damaged and she's still kind of falling apart,
right,
and being exposed to that much water, that much rain didn't help things either. So visuals in this are absolutely strong though, and I think that's obviously reflected in both of us giving it a 10.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about some music, shall we? Yeah, I know you and I. So we, again, as a reminder, we don't discuss our specific scores, but we did discuss that we both struggled with what score to give this category, particularly because our favorite scene in this episode is accompanied by a classic theme, Liam.
You got away?
He didn't get away, and neither will you.
Oh no.
Yes, as you're hearing underneath of us talking right now, they bring back the classic Batman theme. It's also kind of like the choir-y version that you heard in like Mask of Phantasm. And it's just confronted in this great scene, and we'll talk about it a little bit. We have to talk about it in every category because it's the most interesting, coolest scene maybe that we've seen in any Batman Beyond episode so far.
Yeah.
But the music sort of swells at first as the suit grows around him, and then as the helmet closes around his face, and you see Bruce in a Batman suit for the first time, or at least this older Bruce in the Bat suit for the first time, and the original Batman theme plays, and it's a little bit, it's not rocked up, there isn't an electric guitar, but there's like a little bit of more drums to it, It's a little faster paced, and he's sort of knocking Inque back, and she splatters on the wall, and that theme, and then immediately she kind of takes over and knocks him down, and sort of Terry's getting very frantic, trying to get free, and the music in that scene is so great, and like it's that classic theme enough, because my initial thought was like I should give it a 10. I'm not, to be clear. Don't play the sound.
Yes.
But because the rest of the episode music is, I wouldn't say complete non-factor. The first fight scene with Inque, it's obviously there. That sort of frantic, sort of harder rock is there. But overall, there's not a lot to it. And there's like some quirky music at the end when Aaron is in his cell being talked to by the lonely woman now.
Right.
But it's like the one like epic great moment. Is that enough to raise it? I settled on 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Because it is that great for me. Like it's worth it all. Everything we've done on this show so far. Even if most of these Batman Beyond episodes, we talked about this a little off the air, have been pretty darn great.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's been a chore to get through these episodes, but even if some of them weren't great, it's all been worth it for
Yeah.
that one moment.
I would agree. I gave music a very, very different 6 out of 10. And the reason, I think you're right. I think that the music in that scene is extremely memorable. Great job. But that, to me, the music was one of the strongest points of the very first Inque episode.
Yes.
And that sticks out, and it's hard not to compare the two, because it's the return. It's her return, and it didn't play as big of a role. I think you can hear there's some of it that's played during the fight scene between Terry and Inque in the chemical lab.
Yeah.
But it definitely doesn't play as pivotal a role as it did in the first episode, which left me a little sad. It's like, that was so memorable and such a great theme that they used in that first episode that, it feels kind of empty just playing the general fight music, I guess. But then, but the Bruce scene, as you mentioned, is the pièce de résistance.
Yes.
It's the best. So I gave music a very different 6 out of 10. All right, so finally, last but not least, Liam, let's head over to voice acting, where I know we were both surprised to learn we had a very interesting guest star, someone that we will recognize. So let's talk about our players today. Of course, we had the returning Shannon Kenny as Inque, and I think that we talked about it in the first episode. She does a good job.
Yeah.
The voice effect that they put on her, she's in her Inque form for the entire time.
You don't really ever hear her talk. And there's one scene where she's in her human form, but it's really
right. So it's
brief.
Yeah, it's brief, and it's a creepy voice and effective. Of course, it's the Bruce and Terry show. You get Will and Kevin working together a lot on this episode, which I think works well. And then who's our special guest this week, Liam?
So the voice of Aaron Herbst, the lonely cryo worker who becomes a puddle man, is one William H. Macy.
Yeah, you may have heard of this guy.
Yeah, he's obviously he was in Fargo. He's on the show Shameless now.
Mm-hmm.
He's in one of our favorite movies of all time, Mystery Men.
Another superhero movie.
Yes,
crossover.
Where he played the shoveler. Mm-hmm. Very memorably there, but
he's been in a lot of things.
Yes,
clearly,
most people will know the name,
yes.
even if you can't exactly place the face, you definitely know the name. But
yeah.
Yeah, it was just so random and you mentioned to me like 2 or 3 times while we were watching it. Man, that voice sounds familiar. Yeah. And then we saw the credits. We're like, oh my gosh, it's William H. Macy.
William H. Macy.
So
to that point though, and we'll talk about my score for it. I gave voice acting a 6 out of 10, and the reason why I gave it was because I felt like his performance was a little bit phoned in. Like I don't know what they asked of him. Clearly, I don't know what the direction was for the character, but knowing how great of an actor William H. Macy is,
sure,
and seeing him in different things and his portrayal of different characters, and just the acting chops he has, clearly,
yes.
He's a well respected actor. It seemed like in this episode, the character that he played, this guy Aaron, who should have had a lot of passion and been able to sort of do that vocally with this woman that he supposedly, or this woman creature that he loves,
yes.
supposedly loves. I kind of left feeling like it was like, oh, well, I guess he sort of cares about her. Like the scene where he's declaring his undying love for her and pledging to do whatever it takes to be with her. I didn't get the sense that it didn't feel very authentic.
No,
to me.
His performance is kind of monotone. Like there's not a lot of there's just not a lot of emotion put into any of the scenes. Not really when he's being fired at the beginning of the episode,
right?
And he's sort of pleading his case of like, oh, I've done good work for you, and he's sort of begging not to be fired, but like everything is kind of in the same tone of voice.
Yep.
And again, perhaps some of that was on voice direction, what he was asked to do, but. Yeah, I would agree. If you hear the idea of William H. Macy is playing a villain in one of these cartoons, you would think he'd be like a really memorable role,
right?
And he's not awful or anything, but it's not great.
It's not great at all.
But I think Will Friedle and Kevin Conroy are both great in this. We talked about it last week, where there's a lot of Terry busting Bruce's chops. It's kind of the reverse, as you mentioned, where Terry's kind of figuring out the detective stuff, and Bruce already did all the work. Bruce already did while Terry was welding.
Bruce is mocking him the entire time about him, welding the Batcave shut too, and he, it's in a way teaching Terry, like, hey, your first instinct, maybe, trust your first instinct, but sometimes if it doesn't, you have to think through that. He goes through the whole, it was dark that night, you drive, he busts his chops telling him the way he drives, the Batmobile speed, all that stuff.
So, trust your instincts, but also when someone else is trying to give you advice, maybe listen a little bit quicker next time.
Right.
So I thought their back and forth was good. And there's a little first in the Batcave, and then again at the end of the episode where they talk about Terry doesn't buy that the heart condition is what truly made Bruce quit being Batman. And, I mean, as far as we know, his last night was the night he pulled the gun on the guy, and whether or not that's what they were implying here, or if there was, like, another third thing, because I don't really think this is ever revisited deeply in any future episodes or anything in Justice League, so...
Unless it was sort of a pseudo-allusion to... the Return of the Joker stuff, I don't know. Like, I mean, obviously Bruce didn't stop being Batman after the Return of the Joker stuff, but was that I don't know. But you're right. It seemed like that they were alluding to something that was never paid off there.
Yeah, and it's not a big deal because you can always just say he's just never told Terry that story of being so desperate that he pulled the gun on a guy.
Right.
And if that's it, that's fine. But I would have liked to have seen that delved into a little bit more. And like I said, as far as I know, that's not really ever touched on directly ever again.
Yeah.
And, Terry sort of makes light of that. But within this episode, I thought their sort of back and forth of discussing that, I thought was really well done.
I agree.
I went ahead and I gave voice acting 8 out of 10 here. I think, like we talked about, I think it could have been a 10 if William H. Macy was a little bit of a better actor, but which
sounds weird to say, but
I don't know how else to phrase it.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I think Will Friedle's really good. I think Kevin Conroy's really good, and I think Shannon Kenny's good. So, and those really are only 3 players. So, with the other than William H. Macy. So, yeah, good. Like I said, 8 out of 10, but obviously not. It could have been perfect, and it wasn't. It's not a disappointment in any way, but still maybe a little underwhelming in some ways.
Sure, totally with you on that. All right, well, that brings us to our final scores, I guess, Liam. So totaling up mine, I have what turns out to be a 31 out of 40, which is a very respectable number. What I look at you and you are making a face, so something tells me you may have either a similar or the same.
The exact same, in fact, of 31 out of 40.
31.
I will say, sometimes we'll both give something a 10 or a low score. Very rarely do our final scores match up perfectly.
This is true. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'd be curious about how many times that's happened exactly so far.
I mean, off the top of my head, obviously it happened on Heart of Ice.
Right, 40 out of 40.
And there might be one or two other, but I'll do some research and tweet that out later this week. But it's it doesn't happen too often, but... Again, it's not really a complaint. We were talking about this a little bit off the air, but if you average out our scores for each show, Batman Beyond is, I think, far and away has been the most consistently good to great as far as this first season goes. It's really focused. You're on this journey with Terry as he's learning to be Batman. You're introducing these villains. Obviously there's earlier in the season you have Derek Powers, who really hasn't been a player in these last few that we've reviewed at all. In fact, he hasn't been in them. But obviously he's coming back eventually.
He's lurking in the background.
So like sort of the more overarching plot that goes through multiple episodes, you're seeing a little bit of that. So yeah, just overall, Batman Beyond's been just a joy to watch so far and to rewatch.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're strong episodes, and they're clearly done in such a fantastic way that we've had some sting. We've had one or two that we didn't care for so far, and I know, as we alluded to a couple weeks ago, there are more coming up in the future with Batman Beyond. Some episodes that are not universally loved. I guess is putting it lightly.
I will say, if anyone hates on the episode where Terry's friend dates a robot, though. I'll fight you over that one. I love
the
that.
title alone, I think, is going to get a bonus
it's just
point
called
from me.
Terry's Friend
Terry's
Plays a
Friend
Role.
Plays a Role. Yeah, it's definitely called that. And I think that alone would get a point from me.
Yes. So, kind of like as we've mentioned, sort of alluded to in the past with certain episodes of the original Batman or Justice League, there's episodes that I'm kind of excited for those, though, because some that we've expected to be bad have actually been pretty darn good, and some that we expected to be really good were awful.
Yeah.
So...
That's the fun thing about reviewing all these episodes
Yes.
now with this type of critical eye. But yeah, absolutely. All right, so Liam, that will wrap things up for us this week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. As we always say, the fact that you've taken time out to listen to us talk about cartoons that are now 20-some years old. We always
Batman Beyond, exactly 20.
Exactly 20 years old. Happy birthday, Batman Beyond. We are excited. We mentioned last week's episode. We are as the page of the calendar turns, Liam, we will we will move away from Batman Beyond for a time and head back to Justice League, back to the past, I guess.
Yes.
Head back to Justice League and do some of our favorite episodes from that, as that leads up to the release of the Justice League versus the Fatal Five movie that is being released actually the final Saturday in March, which will be when we'll release our review that day. It'll be probably a little bit later than our normal start time. Yeah, it'll be a special event. How about that? But we're excited for that. Super excited for the latest addition to the DCAU here coming up. So super excited about that. So next week we'll be diving back into some Justice League. Super excited to get back into that. Don't forget, follow us on Twitter. Liam runs our Twitter page at DCAU Review. Also, don't forget, we're still doing our Twitter contest. We're creeping up closer to 250. We say it every week. We're getting there, slowly but surely. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
So don't forget. Please tell your friends to like our page, to follow us. And then we are planning on giving. We get to 250. It'd be awesome if we got to 250 by the end of March.
That would be great.
We would love to give away a copy of the Almost Got 'Em game. We'll give you all the information once we hit to 250. We've been doing it over the last 10 episodes. So go back and listen to one of those if you want all the details, and then we'll update again shortly. Anything else, Liam?
No, I think as always, love feedback. Love to hear. Was there an episode of any of these shows that scared you as a child?
Yeah.
Not necessarily that banned you from watching it like me, but was there an episode, did this episode, or the Spellbinder, or maybe one of the Scarecrow episodes, was there an episode of any of these shows that scarred you as a child? Feel free to tweet me with that, or obviously any thoughts on this particular episode, or any of the Beyonds that we've been talking about. And as we mentioned, we're not going to be going in exact order with these Justice League reviews in March. So if there's a specific episode we're not doing Unlimited now, we're just doing Justice League. But if there's a specific episode that you really want to hear us review while we're doing Justice League in March leading up to the big Fatal 5 review, please let us know.
We'll take some suggestions.
Yeah, we're open to suggestions on this.
Absolutely. All right, so that'll wrap us up. I'm Cal.
And I'm Liam.
And we'll talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Goodbye.